So I'm an avid crypto trader, and just like everyone else, I've used plenty of indicators like RSI, MACD, the daily, the weekly, and all these other different candles to be able to decide when to enter and exit the market, right? What I didn't know is about a way big picture indicator, and really it's more of a theory that everybody should know about called the Kondratiev cycle. The Kondratiev cycle is essentially a 40 to 60 year cycle that basically says every 40 to 60 years some sort of new technology is introduced into the world, and it has a massive explosion and adoption and everything like that, and then it just crashes out and burns. Well, on top of all of this, I also have a background and degree in economics, so I'm also keeping up with the market, what's going on with inflation, interest rates, and everything else in general. And something that I found really interesting that I recently noticed is things like, commercial mortgage-backed securities are going default. You've got regional banks like the Silicon Valley Bank a couple years ago that, was struggling and having issues. And they're probably not the only ones, considering that commercial-backed mortgages are, largely held by regional banks. And on top of that, we got this crazy national debt, right? I mean, $30 trillion. There's 600 billion on the pile with this government shutdown that happened recently. It's just getting completely out of control. So what's the purpose of all of this, right? Like, what does all of this mean? Well, let me tell you, when I learned about the Kondratiev cycle, I was able to piece it all together. So before we get into this current cycle, let's just kind of look at the past one, right? So the past Kondratiev cycle started at the end of the Great Depression, right? Which that in and of itself was the end of a cycle. And what happened in that age? Well, we had the electricity and automobile that popped up as our new technology. When it came into the mainframe, everything, started to go up. We had a good recovery and everything like that. And it kind of led us on into the 1970s and 80s. But then pretty major collapse happened with our things, that came up in the 1980s, like Black Monday, the Persian Gulf War, et cetera, et cetera. But funny enough, these Kondratiev cycles a lot of times kind of overlap, right? So the new technology that comes in usually comes in sometime in the winter time, right? Because these are actually seasons. Comes in around the winter time, and it is having its spring season. So during the 1980s, what came about that had its spring? The PC. And it's not like the electricity or automobile or any of these new technologies die off. It's just some of the old ways of doing things did, right? So when we introduced the PC, what happened? Well, we introduced the age of information and technology, and all of a sudden everything starts going digital. Also, we have to keep in mind that in the 1960s, President Nixon took the dollar off of the gold standard. So now it's no longer backed by gold itself or any kind of asset. It's just